Hey y'all, it's LaShonda here from Labors of Love with another Therapy Thursday. And I want to talk a little bit about parenting and boundaries and expectations. If I'm honest with y'all, this is my second take at recording this because it makes sense in my mind, but as it's coming out of my mouth, I'm like, does that make sense? So I'm just going to do my best to talk through some considerations that I've had over the last few weeks when it comes to parenting. I think about boundaries that we set for our children. Oftentimes, the intent of those boundaries is to maintain safety, is to maintain health and well-being. If we're honest, it's to maintain our comfort often. And it got me to thinking about this expectation that gets put on parents that they know what's best for their children. And I began to sit and wonder, because remember, curiosity, compassion and curiosity, those are leading values for me. So as I got curious about it, I had to go through my 3 questions. Well, who told me that? Where did I learn that I have to know what's best? And is it true? And who's being harmed and who's being helped by my belief in that is, and I went through those questions, I realized that I don't know who told me, but I feel like I absorb all the time this notion that as a parent, I'm supposed to know what's best for my children. Well, then I go, well, is it true? And honestly, I'm like, I'm still figuring out what's best for me. How am I supposed to be expected to know what's best for 3 different individuals whose lives are so different than mine? Their lives are different than mine, and I evolve as a parent almost every single day. So the way that I'm parenting them now is different than it was 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago. So what if I loosened the expectation that I have to know what's best for my children, and I assume a posture of curiosity and I learn what's good, better, and best for them as they are learning it as well? And so that was my first consideration. If I release the expectation of knowing what's best, can I open myself up to actually learn what might be better and best for them as they're learning and growing too? The next thing that I was thinking about was boundaries, and just how we will set boundaries for our children, oftentimes based on age, not development. Just because a child grows older, that simply means that time has passed, right? Oftentimes their bodies get bigger and all of these things start to happen, but does that mean they're actually being developed, that they're developing the capacity to meet my rising expectations and these boundaries that I'm setting? And I started to think, maybe I should focus more on developing my children than just the fact that they're aging, or that there are these expectations that come connected to an age because, well, that's what it was for me, or that's what I'm seeing other people doing. But what if I actually thought about the development of my children? What that means is sometimes expectations will go higher for them at a younger age because their development has moved faster. And maybe in some other area, the expectation might not be as high, even if their age, if they've grown older, because that area they haven't developed. It gave me a sense of actually being curious for my children to just be who they are instead of kind of putting them into these narrow boxes. So that's another thought that I was having. The final thing that I want to share that I've been thinking about specifically when it comes to boundaries is sometimes I think parental boundaries can be so hard that when a child bumps up against it, because that's what developing children do, right? They run smack into a boundary because, well, they don't have a prefrontal cortex and they don't realize how dangerous it could be, or they're trying to test the limits to just see where they are, or whatever the reason, they can hit a boundary pretty hard. And I started to think that if my boundary is a brick wall, hitting that boundary is going to hurt real bad. But I've also recognized that a lot of time in parenting, when they hit that boundary and they're already in pain from hitting it, when they fall because they've hit it, we punish them. And that leads to either this fear or rebellion that they move into. So I've just been considering, I have to have boundaries for my children because safety, consistency and parameters and things equals safety for my kids and how they develop. But can my boundary be firm yet soft enough that when they bump up against it, it doesn't have to hurt as bad as running to a brick wall? And when they do, can I be a soft place to land? Can my children learn with me by telling me the mistakes they've made, by telling me when they've hit a boundary, when telling me that they somehow skirted past a boundary I've put? Can I be a soft enough place for them to come and tell me that? Because they're not fearing that they are going to be hurt or punished for it, but that we're going to establish the reasons for the boundaries, and they are going to know that their development and their safety is my top priority. I was thinking about this because I realized that my children are spending more and more time outside of my home, that they are out in the world engaging with all kind of things, and I want to be one of the places where they can come to talk about the good, the bad, the indifferent, without them feeling fear that the first thing I'm going to move to is punishment or hurting them further when they're already hurting. So I don't know, those are just some thoughts I have. I would love to continue this conversation, so feel free to engage with me. What are your thoughts? How are you setting boundaries and expectations for your children? If you want to reach out to me, you can reach me at www.thelaborsoflove.com. We're on all the major social media outlets, so make sure you engage with us there. Don't forget that we have our YouTube channel where this Therapy Thursday video will be housed. And if you haven't already, go ahead and give us that 5-star rating and write a review for the podcast. And don't forget to share with your loved ones and friends. You all, be well.